Did you tell, as was reported, President Trump, that Putin is only doing this and agreeing to talks because he's afraid of Trump? Did you tell him that?
Yes. I told Trump that Putin afraid of him. Yes, and he heard me. And now Putin knows.
This is my video update on this Sunday afternoon, February the 16th, coming to you from Athens, Greece. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with the phone call between Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov and U.S. Secretary of State Rubio, which happened yesterday. And the U.S. initiated this phone call, which is an important detail. According to the Kremlin readout, this call was initiated by the United States, and Ukraine was one of the topics, the main topic, but many other things were discussed in this phone call, including Gaza, the Middle East, and other regions. And the overall vibe, as I was reading the Kremlin readout, was that it was good. It was a good vibe between Russia and the United States, between Lavrov and Rubio. The Kremlin readout says that the goal of the restoration of good diplomatic relations, which is what this is all about between the United States and Russia, is to repair the damage done by the Obama administration. The readout actually says that. The Obama administration did a lot of damage to U.S.-Russia relations, and it's now time to repair the damage done by Obama. And the Kremlin's right. The Kremlin is absolutely right about that. It was the Obama administration that overthrew the democratically elected government of Yanukovych in Ukraine. They're the ones that started the Maidan coup and completed the Maidan coup. It was the Obama administration that really ramped up sanctions against Russia, that started to ban Russia from international organizations like the G8, and it became the G7. It was the Obama administration that started expelling Russian diplomats from the United States. That was the Obama administration. Obama, Vice President Biden, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Before Clinton, it was Kerry, Samantha Power, Susan Rice, Victoria Nuland, Jeffrey Pyatt as ambassador of the United States to Ukraine. Nuland calling Pyatt and saying, F the EU, Yats is our guy. Biden, Burisma, Hunter. That was all started under Obama. I mean, it probably goes back even further. It predates Obama, but it was really the Obama administration that really ramped things up and really damaged the relationship between Russia and the United States. That was Obama. What a bunch of nasty people, huh? When I rattle off the names of everybody in the Obama administration, what a bunch of, man, wow. Man, it's amazing we survived that administration, huh? So, yeah, that was the readout from the Kremlin to begin to repair the damage done from Obama's time. And then we get to the announcement that this is coming mostly from the Collective West media, but the announcement is that there will be a summit between Trump and Putin in Saudi Arabia at the end of the month. And next week, top level officials from Russia and the United States, they will be going to Saudi Arabia to prepare everything for an end of the month summit between Putin and Trump, just between Putin and Trump. And the best part about all of this is that the European Union, the UK, Ukraine were not told about any of this. They have not been invited. They were not notified about this. They were not given any information about this. They had no clue that this was going on. They basically found out about this when we found out about this. Yeah. Amazing, huh? Absolutely amazing. Yeah, so the EU and Ukraine and the UK completely cut out of the summit that is going to be taking place in Saudi Arabia, possibly taking place in Saudi Arabia at the end of the month. And what an interesting dynamic. The United States, Russia, and Saudi Arabia. Putin, Trump, and MBS. Very interesting dynamic, huh? No Europeans, no UK, no Zelensky. No Zelensky. Though Zelensky did, when he found out about this, he was in Munich and he spoke to the media and he said that he wasn't invited to this summit. He had no idea about this and he wasn't invited. But then after Zelensky's statement, it looks like his entertainment lawyer, Yermak, and Podolyak, they started to come out and say that Zelensky is going to go to Saudi Arabia, that he was invited, but he's not invited to take part in the talks between Putin and Trump, but he's going to be invited to Saudi Arabia so that he can talk about Ukraine and reconstruction and prisoner exchanges and stuff like that. I don't know how much I believe that, but anyway, I wouldn't be surprised if Zelensky just shows up to Saudi Arabia. He did it in the past. Remember the time? This was like 2 years ago when Zelensky just showed up in Saudi Arabia. He just showed up there. He wasn't invited or anything. He just popped up in Saudi Arabia and he was like, "Hey, MBS, buddy pal, how you doing? I just thought I would drop by, hang out a bit." Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he just shows up to Saudi Arabia. He's done it before. But yeah, they were not notified about any of this. Not at all. And the Europeans, they're panicking, man. They are absolutely panicking. Macron has called an emergency meeting to take place in Paris. He is calling an emergency meeting. Macron calls emergency summit amid Ukraine peace talks. I believe he was in Warsaw when all this was going down. And the European Union needs to respond to Trump's negotiation style, the Polish foreign minister has said. That's what Sikorsky said. So yeah, they're calling an emergency meeting, an EU emergency meeting to take place in France. Yeah, they're in panic mode. They are absolutely in panic mode because they've been played. It's finally hit them. The Europeans have finally realized that they've been played. They're in Munich. A lot of them are in Munich and they're laughing it up. They're partying it up, talking about how bad Putin is and how bad Russia is. And as long as it takes, and Zelensky's the next Churchill, and we're going to defeat Russia. All of these things that they just keep on going on and on about. Even making fun of Trump as well. They're even making fun of Trump in Munich. And all of this is happening in Munich. And it's a globalist neo-lib party going on. And meanwhile, the United States and Russia, they're coming up with a big summit in Saudi Arabia. And they're going to work on a peace deal in Ukraine and a rapprochement, a rebuilding of diplomatic relations between the United States and Russia. That's what the adults are doing as the kids are partying it up in Munich. And it's finally hit them. It's finally hit them. Oh my God. As we're celebrating the defeat of Russia with Zelensky in Munich, we've got a summit about to take place in Saudi Arabia. They've completely bought into the narrative, and they still can't come to terms with it, that that they're going to win in Ukraine, that if they just push a little bit more, they're going to defeat Russia, and that the United States is their best buddy. we're allies, we're pals, we're best friends, we're united forever, and together we're going to defeat Russia. They still haven't quite come to terms with the fact that this is not the case anymore. That the United States wants out, that Trump wants out, that you guys have been played.
What leverage do you have to get back in the game? What's your plan?
Well, to convince President Putin to become more reasonable, we have to convince him that the price that he would have to pay would be unacceptable. This is a classic colonial war. They usually take a decade. Look at Vietnam, look at Algeria, look at Angola, Afghanistan. Shorter than that is a bonus. Russian economy is starting to suffer. If we convince him that we are not eager to go back to business as usual, that we can sustain it for longer than he, then he'll make a deal. So our plan should be to stay the course, to continue supporting Ukraine and to support Ukraine in its defense for as long as Ukraine is willing to defend itself.
Stay the course without the Americans, or?
We made that clear in our announcement.
Because they don't seem as if they're in it for the long haul. Perhaps I'm misunderstanding the general, but.
So they have to get to the stage of acceptance. They're still in denial, but they're finally coming to the stage of acceptance by calling these emergency meetings. Kaja Kallas said the EU, stunning and brave Kaja Kallas said the EU must ensure that Ukraine continues its military actions, says EU diplomacy chief Kallas. What a nice lady, huh? Ukraine, even though it's lost the war and it's losing very bad, and the front line, the situation on the front line is getting worse every single day. The Russians are advancing. The Ukraine military is getting caught in cauldron after cauldron. Town, village, region continues to fall to the Russian military. What's Kaja Kallas' solution to all of this? Ukraine has to keep on fighting. What a sweet lady, huh? That Kaja Kallas. She really cares about Ukraine, huh? That's her solution. Ukraine just has to keep on fighting. The Associated Press, they put out an article with the title, Europe quietly works on a plan to send troops to Ukraine for post-war security. Every 2-3 weeks we get this article from the Collective West media. Every 2-3 weeks about how UK and France are quietly or secretly they're planning to send troops to Ukraine, but it's very quiet, it's very secret. No one knows about it, but we're just telling you they have a secret plan. We're telling you as the media that Macron and Stormer, Keir Stormer, 008, Keir Stormer, licensed to bore you, licensed to put you asleep, Keir Stormer, they're coming up with a plan to send troops to Ukraine. It's quiet, shh, it's quiet, it's secret. And of course, they're going to send troops to Ukraine. I don't know what troops they have to send to Ukraine, but they're going to send troops to Ukraine if there's some sort of a negotiation between Russia and the United States. Then the UK says they're going to step in and they're going to send troops to Ukraine. And France is going to take the lead and they're going to send troops to Ukraine. Every 3 weeks we get this story. So yeah, they're in panic, man. They're in panic. They realize they've been played. Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó is warning Trump, be careful, because when these EU kleptocrats, these globalists, they get together in their little meetings, they're not going to talk about a solution to Project Ukraine. They're going to talk about sabotaging your peace talks with Russia. Because their greatest fear is peace in Ukraine, but even more than that, this goes beyond Ukraine. Their greatest fear is Russia and the United States working together. That's their greatest fear, talking to each other. That's what really, really scares them. So Peter Szijjártó, he said the European pro-war liberal elites will try to do everything in its power to ensure that the peace agreement that ends the war in Ukraine is not reached, which is currently closer than ever. And Siarto knows these people. He works with them every day. He has to deal with them every single day, so he knows the way they think. So they're going to meet in Paris, and unfortunately, the Europeans and the UK, they're not going to meet to try and help along the peace process, the negotiations, the Trump administration. Nope, they're going to meet to try and sabotage. That's what they're going to do. How do we sabotage this? And now we don't even have a seat at the table. If we can't be in the same room with Putin and Trump, then how are we going to sabotage this? That's what they're going to try to figure out. So they'll come up with false flags, and they'll look at nuclear power plants. They'll look at the Baltic Sea. They'll look at something there, and they'll try to figure out a way to sabotage the rapprochement between Russia and the United States. And I've been saying this for a while now, but I'll say it again. Even if Trump cannot solve Ukraine with Putin, even if they can't come up with an immediate solution to Project Ukraine, Ukraine is just one part of Russia-U.S. relations. It should be just one part of U.S.-Russia relations. They have many, many things that they need to discuss, that they need to work together on, many problems around the world that Russia and the United States and China and India can solve. And they have to talk to each other. You know, you've got nuclear weapons. They can work together to fight terrorism. They can work together on energy and inflation and the Middle East. They have many, many issues that they need to be talking to each other to try and solve. Ukraine is just one part. So even if they can't figure out Ukraine, the United States and Russia absolutely need to be talking to each other and working together. It doesn't mean they're allies. It doesn't mean they're best buddies. They can even be competing and adversaries in certain regions or in certain topics or issues. But the fact that they're talking to each other is a net positive, and they need to talk to each other. But that scares the globalists and the UK and EU elite, political elite. So Kellogg was in Munich. He made an appearance in Munich. He was at a panel session with Thank You USA Sikorsky and the foreign minister of Poland and some other people. I forgot who the other people were sitting in on this panel. Not important. And then he was also interviewed as well in Munich. And Kellogg, he was asked if the EU would be at the negotiations between the United States and Russia, if they would have a seat at the table. And Kellogg said no. Said it's not going to happen. But he did water down his response a bit because people were shocked when he said no. But then Kellogg said, look, we don't want a big group discussion on this. So we don't want a whole lot of people involved. And we will eventually, once Trump and Putin come to an understanding, we'll invite Ukraine to the table as well. So Ukraine will be given what's it called? Where you put the little kids to sit, a high chair. Zelensky will be given a high chair to sit on at the table with the adults, with Trump and Putin eventually. Ukraine will be invited into the room. And he also said that the United States would take Europe's interests into consideration when they come up with whatever deal they're going to come up with. So he watered it down a bit, but still, he shocked everybody when he said that the EU is not going to be at the table.
Can you assure this audience that Ukrainians will be at the table and Europeans will be at the table?
Oh, well, you just changed the whole dynamic. Victor, thanks for having us today. I appreciate it. The answer to that last question, just as you framed it, the answer is no. The answer to the earlier part of that question is yes. Of course the Ukrainians are going to be at the table. I mean, it would be foolish to say they wouldn't. But when you say at the table, you have to define it. One of the things I'm driving towards is we've had remember this war has been going on now, we're heading into the third year. One of the things we haven't really gotten to are specifics. What does it really look like? And we talk a lot about it, and I will criticize, and I know I'm being very, very political when I say this. But President Trump inherited this war right now. But our philosophy is not to continue this war to the death of every last Ukrainian. The intent is to stop the carnage, stop the war, make sure it's reasonable, making sure the sovereignty stays intact. But we're going to get to specifics about it. When you say sitting at the table, in all probability, there's really going to be one of the reasons I'm here is for the input, obviously. But when you sit at the table, there's two protagonists when you look at it, and there's one hopefully to be an intermediary. When you look at
who are the protagonists and who's the intermediary?
Well, I'm saying is it depends. Notice I'm being very diplomatic about it. I got my diplomatic hat, my passport in my pocket. The fact is, we're looking at, you can have the Ukrainians, the Russians, and clearly the Americans at the table talking, but we've got to have specifics to get to a point.
Yesterday, in her one-on-one interview, Ursula said, we're going to be at the table. And then Kellogg comes in and says, no, you're not. But Kellogg, in his panel discussion, he reverted back to his ceasefire plan. And he was telling the Europeans everything that they wanted to hear. I mean, it was music to Sikorsky. Thank you, USA, for blowing up Nord Stream Sikorsky. It was music to the neocons' ears, the stuff that Kellogg was saying.
What concessions will Putin have to make?
Well, to me, there's going to have to be things like territorial concessions as well. Okay, some of it is unrealistic to expect where you'd want to go to, but it's territorial. It's some territorial. It could be the engagement of refusing to use force, renouncement of the use of force into the future from a political side. He's not going to downsize his military forces, hopefully get rid of it. What we're going to try to do is basically force him into actions. What you want to do is force him to actions maybe he's uncomfortable with. What I mean by that is an example. Right now is what we're going to do is try to break this alliance that he currently has. He's got an alliance around with North Korea that wasn't there before. He's got an alliance with Iran that wasn't there before. He's got an alliance with China that wasn't there before, meaning 4 years ago before.
He was talking about getting to a ceasefire. He was talking about the concessions that Russia's going to have to make. They're going to have to break off relations with China. They're going to have to break off relations with Iran and North Korea. He said that's one of the concessions that Russia's going to have to make. He talked about if Russia is not negotiating in good faith, he said, then we're going to put the stick to them, the carrot and stick, and we're going to crank up sanctions. Because right now, he said that sanctions are at 3 from 10, scale of 1 to 10. He said he thinks that the sanctions against Russia are at 3. I can't talk today. And he wants to crank them up. He says that the United States could crank them up to 6 or to 10 and really make Russia hurt. So in the panel discussion, he was telling the neocons and the neolibs and the globalists everything that they wanted to hear. And that leads me to believe that Kellogg, he knows a bit about what's going on with the negotiations between Putin and Trump. So the Trump administration, they've let him in on some of the stuff that they're thinking of talking to with Russia. But it's clear that Kellogg doesn't have the full picture of things. He's still being led to believe, and I think the Trump administration is doing this on purpose. They're leading Kellogg to believe that they're going to go with his plan. Now, maybe they will go with Kellogg's plan, his carrot and stick economic warfare on Russia plan. Maybe Trump will revert to that. I don't think so, but who knows? Kellogg believes that that's the plan that they're going to go with. That's why Trump sent them to travel around Europe to pitch this plan to the Europeans, carrot and stick economic warfare on Russia. And in Munich, he was talking about his carrot and stick economic warfare, sanction Russia until they capitulate plan, right? Freeze the conflict, demilitarized zone, peacekeepers, all of that stuff. But, Kellogg, to me, if I had to take a guess, he's being used as the distraction. That's my guess. The Trump administration, they're having him travel around Europe and say all these things. I don't know if Kellogg understands this. Maybe he does. Most likely he doesn't, but he's the distraction. He tells the Europeans what they want to hear. The Europeans are distracted by Kellogg, so they don't think about sabotaging the talks that are taking place, the real talks, the real adult talks that are taking place, and that's Kellogg's purpose. That's his purpose. He's the distraction. He is the distraction, and he prevents the globalist EU, UK meddling because they're so focused on all of the beautiful things that Kellogg is saying about Project Ukraine, right? Yeah, and they finally realized it. I think the Europeans, Macron, it's finally hit him. Oh, crap. We've been completely outmaneuvered by Trump and by Putin. It's finally hit them. So that's why they're calling emergency meetings. That's my take on things. That's what I think is going on. So Rutte, Mark Rutte, he's telling the Europeans to stop complaining. The NATO CEO, and that's what Rutte is. He's the CEO of NATO, right? NATO's a business. Rutte is the CEO. And he's telling the Europeans, stop complaining, man. Stop whining about Trump, because right now, at this moment, the United States, Trump is our number one customer. The United States is 80% of our revenue. As CEO of NATO, I'm telling you that the United States is 80% of our revenue. So let's not piss off our number one revenue stream. So he's telling the Europeans to shut up, accept what's happening, right? Don't jeopardize the money flow. And if you have anything to say about Ukraine, come up with different ideas and pitch them to Trump. That's what Rutte is saying. And then Rutte is telling the Europeans, also give NATO more money. That's what he's saying. Give NATO more money. He actually said that that NATO spending target, that the NATO spending target will be considerably more than 3%. The U.S. is rightly asking for a rebalancing of that, said Rutte. It's totally logical. Give us more money. As CEO of NATO, I'm telling you, we need more money. So cough it up. EU member states, NATO member states, cough up that 3% plus. Interesting, huh? Very interesting sculpture. This is new. This is brand new. This was not here last time I was at this park. So you look at it from the back, it looks pretty cool. But you look at it from this angle, it's not as impressive. But from the back, it's more impressive because you're getting the hill, right? You're getting the hill. So let's learn about this sculpture. Let's learn a bit. Yeah, that's more impressive. Amazing, huh? You have the NATO CEO telling the Europeans to shut up and to pay up, as they're being cut out of the negotiations for Project Ukraine, and he's telling them to just pay more money into NATO, as you guys are being completely cut out of everything. Incredible stuff. Oh boy, Inuksuk, it says, presented to Greece by the Embassy of Canada. March 2024, artist is Heather Carroll. Construction, Pneumatikos marble. Pneumatikos is Greek. Okay, there it is. There's the Greek translation. You can't really see it because it's kind of dirty. And there's the French. So it's Greek, but in Latin, Pneumatikos marble. Can I touch it? I think I can touch it. Why not? It's beautiful marble, actually. Cool. Thank you, Canada. You see Trudeau. See, Trudeau does good things, right? Trudeau does good things. So anyway, that's what Rutte said. And then we have the rare earth minerals report from NBC, which says Trump officials pitch Zelensky on U.S. owning 50% of Ukraine's rare earth minerals. And Trump wants U.S. troops to guard Ukraine's rare earth, according to NBC. So the plan, according to NBC, according to their sources, if you believe this, is that U.S. troops will be in Ukraine, boots on the ground. That's what we're talking about here. Boots on the ground in Ukraine to protect the rare earth minerals. of which the United States would have 50% ownership. Do Americans really want this? Would Russia actually accept this? Do Ukrainians want this? Nothing about this rare earth minerals story feels right. Just doesn't feel right at all. But according to NBC, they interviewed a CEO from one of these rare earth mineral companies, and this CEO, I forgot the company's name, he said that they're ready to go. They're ready to extract these minerals, but what they need is they need the U.S. military there to protect them. He said that they will not be able to extract the minerals until they have U.S. boots on the ground in Ukraine to help them, to protect them as they pillage and plunder Ukraine. This is according to I believe 4 officials interviewed by NBC. Look, Trump, my view of this is that Trump wants some sort of way to go back to the American people and to tell them Biden, incompetent Biden, he says that all the time, incompetent Biden lost $350 billion or $300 billion in Ukraine, whatever the number. And I found a way for the United States to recover $300 billion, right? To get back $300 billion that Biden lost, that incompetent Biden blew in Ukraine. That's what I think Trump is angling for. Because the collective West lost. They lost this war. NATO lost this war. US lost this war. Europe lost this war. But Trump, he wants to go back to the American people, and he just wants to say, look, we lost $300 billion. I found a way to get back $300 billion. Now, there's other configurations that the United States and Russia could discuss, could work on, so that Trump may be able to accomplish this goal. They can sit down, they can talk to each other, and the Russians could say something like, and I'm just throwing stuff out there, I'm spitballing, right? I'm spitballing here. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but Russia could say, look, we have $300 billion in assets, $250 billion in our frozen assets. We'll sign those assets over to you. So now they're the US's assets. We'll sign them over. We'll create a document, sign them over to you. And in return, you agree, as the United States, that there will be no more weapons, no more money to Project Ukraine and other things. You agree to other things as well. That's a solution. That is a solution. And then the U.S. is responsible to get these Russian, well, they're not Russian assets anymore, to get these assets, this $250 billion out of Euroclear. It becomes the U.S.'s responsibility. You know, they're already 3 years without these assets. It's already baked in the cake that they're not going to get these assets back, or if they get these assets back, it's going to probably take 10, 20 years if you go through the court systems. So what Russia could say is, here you go, here's a paper, these assets, they're our assets. We transfer them over to the United States. In return, the U.S. is out of the Ukraine business once and for all, forever. We have elections in Ukraine. That could be in the contract as well. We have elections in Ukraine. Medvedchuk comes in, he becomes president. No more weapons to Ukraine, no more money to Ukraine. And there you go. Trump gets a win, Russia gets a win, Ukraine gets a win. You can have Medvedchuk as president. You can have a federated republic Ukraine, so regions have autonomy as well. You can do something like that. The 4 oblasts are recognized by the United States. That could be part of the deal. You don't need Europe. You don't need Zelensky. Trump goes back and says, here you guys go. I got our investment recouped. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there, man. I'm just throwing stuff out there that could be possible if Russia and the United States talk to each other. Even Vance said it in the interview with the Wall Street Journal, which he said a lot of it was fake news. There was one quote from Vance which really stuck out. And if this was indeed what he said to the Wall Street Journal. He said that the United States and Russia, and I'm paraphrasing it, I don't remember it exactly as he said it, but Vance said that if the United States and Russia talk to each other, there are many, for Ukraine, there are many different configurations, he said, for possible solutions. He used the word, there's many ways this could be configured, configurations or configured. If they talk to each other, they can find a way for all sides to get what they need out of a deal, including peace for Ukraine, with Russia's security interests taken into consideration. It can happen. It can happen. We'll see. Just an idea, just a crazy thought that I have. So let's get to clown world territory. Let's make our way into clown world territory. By the way, Wang Yi, the foreign minister of China, he was in Munich, and he was speaking to the globalists in Munich, and he was pressured about China buying gas from Russia, and Wang Yi just completely shut down the globalists. I mean, it was fantastic. It was glorious. Wang Yi just told all of these EU globalists in attendance. He said, "Okay, so you want us to stop buying Russian gas? Well, you tell me who's going to provide gas then to China if we stop working with Russia. Tell me who's going to give us gas." And the audience was just silent. We don't know. We don't know. Gas magically appears. I thought gas is like magic. Isn't that how Green Party officials look at energy, resources, food? It just appears. It appears in the supermarket. I don't know where it comes from. The gas just appears. The oil, it's just there. Right? You mean people have to provide it? Countries have to provide it? People have to work to extract it? I didn't know that. Farmers have to farm it? I had no idea. I just thought it appears at my local supermarket like magic. Yeah, Wang Yi's like, look, if we don't get it from Russia, who's going to give it to us? Who's going to sell it to us? Who's going to provide it to us? Russia's our neighbor. We get a pipeline right to our country. And everyone was just quiet.
Country, and based on our mutual trust, we built a comprehensive strategic partnership. So exchanges between China and Russia are normal exchanges between countries. You mentioned, can China stop buying gas from Russia? Well, I'd like to ask this. If China does not buy gas from Russia, which country can provide so much gas as to meet the needs of Chinese people? It's not possible.
There's some rapprochement going on between the United States and Belarus, by the way. The New York Times put out an article. A quick, quiet trip to Belarus signals a turn in U.S. policy. You see, something big is at play here, man. Something big is at play. As the EU and the UK are, I'm telling you, as they're distracted and they're in Munich doing their thing, Trump and Putin, China, I'm sure China's in on this as well. They're doing some other stuff, right? They've got everyone else distracted, and they're working on something big because we're getting signals that there's going to be some easing of sanctions against Belarus. That's why you have Belarus releasing all of these prisoners, and it looks like the U.S. is going to ease up on restrictions and sanctions on Belarus. That's coming. That is coming. Medvedev put out a post on X referencing everything that's going down in Munich, saying the Kiev clown chastised Trump for everything possible. That is, the washed up beggar and thief spat into the giver's hand. The question is, how will Trump react? I think we're starting to get a picture as to how Trump is going to react. He's going to react by working out a deal with Putin. That's how I think he's going to react. I could be wrong about all of this, though. Who knows? Maybe he will go back to the Kellogg plan. It's always possible. This is always possible. We'll see how all of this unfolds. Let's do some clown worlds. The Chinese journalist Chen Weihuao, I know I'm pronouncing that wrong, Weihui, he's working in Brussels, Belgium for China Daily, EU Bureau chief columnist, formerly chief correspondent in Washington and New York. He posted on X, "Can't believe the EU would have a top diplomat without a brain. Talk like a high school student." and guess whose picture he has there? Guess whose picture? And this guy's in Brussels. This guy's in Brussels, man. Oh boy. Yeah. The EU foreign minister, stunning and brave, Kaja Kallas. Annalena in Munich. She was in Munich on a panel discussion with Sikorsky, so the foreign minister of Germany, with Sikorsky, the foreign minister of Poland, I believe Lamy, the foreign secretary of the UK, and I believe that guy who represents France. No one knows his name. No one cares about him. I forget who he is. He's the foreign minister of France, whatever. The no-name guy. They were all on a panel and they were talking about Putin and threats to Europe. They disagreed with J.D. Vance. That's what Annalena said. I disagree with J.D. Vance. The number one threat to Europe, she said, is Putin. Beautiful, huh? That's what Annalena said. The number one threat is Putin. And then she went into this big speech and this big statement about democracy. And Putin is a threat to democracy. And the number two threat, according to Annalena, is Islam. And the number three threat is the far right, AfD. Those are the top three threats to Europe, not Europe. And Annalena talked about democracy. She said, I've taken an oath. I've taken an oath. And as a politician, and it was Putin that launched this attack on democracy, she said. And Poland and the UK, France, they gave Germany our democracy. Yeah, she said, yeah, they gave Germany our democracy. And Putin decided to attack our democracy. And that was an external attack. And in German, this is called Guten Tag, Demokratie, or something like that. And that's an external attack on our democracy. And we also have internal attacks on our democracy, which is called Guten Tag, Demokratie. Yeah, and this is from Islam and from the far right. And these are all attacks on our democracy because they are attacking our democracy. And I took an oath to be on the right side of history and to protect our democracy. And that was Annalena's statement. And I will play you the video. It was Annalena, classic Annalena 360.
This is a moment of truth. Everybody in the world has to decide whether you stand on the side of the free world or you stand on the side of those who fight against the free world. And we are standing here on the side of the free world. And speaking for my own country, yeah, we are so lucky, my generation, that our allies, the US, but also our Polish partners, France and UK, they have brought democracy to my country. And we call it wehrhafte Demokratie, resilient democracy, meaning if you're resilient, you fight against the enemies of your democracy. And our biggest enemy, and this is where I might disagree with the speech from yesterday, our biggest enemy at the moment is Putin's Russia, because he has declared war on our European peace and on our European democracy. And this is why my oath I swore as a politician in a democracy of Europe is to defend this democracy against the enemies from outside, but also to defend it against the enemies from inside. This is also called wehrhafte Demokratie, resilient democracy. If radical extreme right or Islamistic structures are calling on a fight against our democracy, Europe is strong enough to defend it from inside. And this is again the moment where you have to pick a side for the free and liberal world, the world of democracy. And this is what Europe is all about.
So that's Annalena. And you know, the interesting part about all of this is that it was in Munich in 2023 where Annalena made her famous 360 comment. That was also at the Munich Security Conference in 2023. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Telegram, and Rockfin. Go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch like what I am wearing. In this video update today, you see, it's crying about Annalena. You mention Annalena, the kids cry. Anyway, that's the video. Duran shop. Take care.